Tensions between the United States and China are flaring once again. And this time, it could be the biggest tariff hike yet. President Trump has just announced a new 50% tariff on all Chinese imports, set to take effect on April 9th, unless Beijing reverses its recent retaliation. If this goes through, it would push total tariffs on Chinese goods over 100%, sending shockwaves across global supply chains. But what exactly led to this moment? What is China doing in response? And how will this affect everyday consumers and importers right here in the US? We're diving into all of it, from the timeline and political motives to the real-world economic consequences. If you care about trade, global markets, or just want to understand what's happening behind the headlines, hit that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns like this, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us keep this channel going strong. Let's jump into it. On April 7, 2025, President Trump took to the podium with a message that instantly shook global markets. Unless China pulls back on its retaliation, the United States will impose an additional 50% tariff on all Chinese imports, starting April 9th. This move comes in direct response to China's recent announcement of a 34% retaliatory tariff on a wide range of U.S. goods, including agricultural exports, industrial equipment, and semiconductors. With this new policy, total tariffs on Chinese imports could reach a staggering 104%, marking one of the most aggressive protectionist escalations since the original U.S.-China trade war under Trump's first administration. The announcement follows weeks of rising tensions with U.S. officials accusing China of economic aggression and deliberately undermining American manufacturing. According to sources close to the White House, the administration believes this level of pressure is necessary to force Beijing back to the negotiating table and to deter further retaliation. But is it working? Let's take a look at what China had to say. China wasted no time firing back. Just hours after Trump's announcement, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce issued a strongly worded statement condemning the move as unilateral bullying and economic blackmail. They vowed to fight to the end and promised to take all necessary countermeasures to protect national interests. While Beijing has not yet announced a new round of retaliatory tariffs as of this recording, experts say it's highly likely. The Chinese government views these escalations as direct attacks not only on its economy, but on its sovereignty. In the past, China has responded with symmetrical tariffs and targeted pressure on politically sensitive U.S. sectors, such as agriculture, aviation, and tech components. Some observers are watching for non-tariff retaliation as well, including delays in customs processing for U.S. goods, regulatory crackdowns on U.S. firms operating in China, and possible currency maneuvers to offset tariff effects. China's official press has also launched a campaign portraying the U.S. as a destabilizing force in global trade, framing Trump's strategy as reckless and short-sighted. So what sparked this latest round of trade brinkmanship? Let's rewind a bit and look at why this is happening now. The timing of this escalation isn't random, it's part economic, part political, and deeply strategic. Let's start with the economic context. Over the past several months, the U.S. trade deficit with China has widened again, despite years of tariffs and efforts to reshore production. Key industries, from pharmaceuticals to consumer electronics, still rely heavily on Chinese supply chains. This has frustrated policymakers who argue that China continues to benefit disproportionately from U.S. market access. At the same time, the Chinese government has been increasing subsidies to its exporters and tightening control over critical sectors like rare earth metals, which are essential to U.S. defense and tech manufacturing. These moves are being interpreted in Washington as hostile, prompting calls for a tougher response. Now layer on the political dimension. President Trump is in the middle of a heated re-election campaign, and tariffs remain a cornerstone of his platform. By reigniting a bold, high-profile trade dispute with China, he's playing to a base that sees tariffs as a way to protect American jobs and push back against foreign influence. His message is simple and direct: China is taking advantage of us, and we're finally doing something about it. But there's also a gamble here. Escalating tariffs this dramatically could trigger blowback, not just from China but from US businesses and consumers who are already feeling the pinch of inflation and supply chain strain. Which brings us to one of the biggest questions today. How will this impact US importers? For US importers, the threat of a 50% tariff on Chinese goods is more than just a headline. It's a direct hit to their cost structure. Businesses that rely on Chinese manufacturing, whether for raw materials, components, or finished goods, now face a difficult choice. Absorb the cost, which reduces profit margins, pass it on to customers, risking price sensitivity and lost sales, or pivot to alternate suppliers, which often takes months or even years. Small and mid-sized importers are especially vulnerable. Unlike large corporations with diverse global sourcing networks, smaller firms often depend on long-standing supplier relationships in China, and don't have the resources to switch quickly. Industries at particular risk include consumer electronics, apparel and textiles, industrial machinery, and toys and household goods. And let's not forget the domino effect. Increased import costs don't just affect one company. They ripple through the entire supply chain, impacting distributors, retailers, and ultimately the end buyer. Some importers are rushing to front-load shipments trying to beat the April 9th deadline, but customs data already shows congestion at ports and rising freight rates, which adds yet another layer of cost and complexity. Let's break that down in the next section. Impact on consumers. If these tariffs go into effect, US consumers will almost certainly feel the impact, and quickly. A 50% tariff doesn't just hit businesses behind the scenes, it pushes up the price of goods that people buy every day. That includes electronics like phones, laptops, and smart devices, clothing and footwear, home appliances and kitchenware, toys, tools, and hobby supplies. Retailers often try to delay price increases, but with such a sharp cost spike, many will have no choice but to raise prices at the register. In an economy already stretched by inflation, this could lead to a drop in consumer spending, especially in lower-income households. And it's not just about prices. Choice and availability may also take a hit. Importers may reduce their product lines or delay new product launches due to uncertainty or rising costs. Consumers could see fewer options, more stockouts, and longer wait times, particularly for goods that are hard to source outside of China. There's also a psychological effect. Consumers hearing about a 104% total tariff may begin to change their buying habits, even before prices go up, creating sudden shifts in demand that the supply chain isn't prepared for. Now let's zoom out a bit. What's the broader economic impact of all this tariff talk, and how are markets responding? That's next. The announcement of the new tariff threat sent shockwaves through global markets. Within hours, major US stock indexes tumbled. The Dow Jones dropped over 600 points, the S&P 500 fell by nearly 2%, and tech-heavy firms, especially those with supply chains tied to China, saw even sharper declines. Investors are nervous, not just about the tariffs themselves but about the possibility of an all-out trade war. If both sides continue escalating, the global economy could take a significant hit. Wall Street analysts are already warning of a drag on GDP, estimating that if the full 50% tariffs are implemented, it could shave 0.3 to 0.5 percentage points off US economic growth this year. Internationally, supply chain planners are bracing for ripple effects. Southeast Asia may see a spike in manufacturing activity as companies look to move production out of China. Europe and Latin America may face indirect consequences as global shipping lanes adjust and demand patterns shift. Some experts are comparing the current moment to the 2018-2019 trade war, but with one key difference. Inflation is already high and consumer confidence is fragile. That makes the economic consequences even more unpredictable. All of this begs the question, what happens next? Let's explore some possible scenarios. Scenario 1, China backs down. This is the outcome the Trump administration is hoping for. If China announces a rollback of its 34% retaliatory tariff, the US might delay or cancel the 50% increase. But that's unlikely. Historically, China has been firm in not appearing to fold under external pressure, especially when the rhetoric involves accusations of economic bullying. Backing down could be seen as a loss of face both domestically and internationally. Scenario 2, the tariff is imposed and China retaliates again. If April 9th comes and the US enacts the 50% tariff, China is widely expected to hit back, possibly with new tariffs on US goods, regulatory actions against US firms in China, or restrictions on critical materials like rare earth metals. This tit-for-tat spiral would likely deepen the standoff and inject even more instability into global markets. Scenario 3. Behind-the-scenes negotiations lead to a temporary pause. There is still a chance that diplomatic backchannels yield a last-minute agreement, perhaps a pause or framework for further talks. That's what many business groups and economists are hoping for, a move that cools tensions long enough to avoid another economic shock. But with national pride, politics, and power on the line, it's a long shot. So what should importers, business owners, and everyday consumers do in the meantime? Let's wrap it all up. The announcement of a potential 50% tariff on Chinese goods is more than just a policy threat. It's a turning point in US-China trade relations. Whether this is a short-term pressure tactic or the beginning of a new long-term strategy, the implications are real, and they're already being felt. Importers are scrambling to adapt, consumers are bracing for higher prices, and markets are on edge, watching for any sign of resolution or escalation. If history has taught us anything, it's that trade wars are easy to start but incredibly difficult to unwind. So whether you're a business owner trying to navigate new tariffs, a consumer wondering why prices are rising, or someone simply trying to make sense of global economics, this story matters, and it's still unfolding. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit the like button. It helps us reach more viewers like you. Subscribe for daily updates on trade, tariffs, and shipping, and drop a comment below. Do you think these tariffs will work? Or are we heading toward another full-scale trade war? Sources are listed in the description. Stay informed, and we'll see you in the